recording in the middle of a laugh to keep it going.
There once was a man from Nantucket.
Who fucked a bucket?
Fuck the bucket. Anyway, what is going on, gentlemen? Happy post July 4th to you, gentlemen. Today is July 5th. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. How about you guys?
I'm West Coast, so I'm still waking up.
You
You're
know,
a slacker.
it's at least for the three of us, it's a good day. None of us are Kaseya partners.
You know, and before we get really started in this one, I really want to definitely say I take some great joy because we are going to slam the shit out of Kaseya today. And
With peace and love.
with peace and love to some degree, but some of I don't give a crap. This will more than likely be very explicit in language, so if you don't want to hear or see that, you may want to go to a different channel right now, because I am very triggered. And while the companies of Huntress, Blackpoint, and some of these other companies will be more than likely mentioned, you know, we are not here throwing shade at those companies, but I do have
Only
some
Kaseya.
questions.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're only throwing shade at Kaseya. The other companies that we will mention, please don't get triggered. We're not trying to bash them, but I do have some real good questions that I want to ask about just what in the world is going on. So,
I think you guys should ask me how I figured out compliance is absolute bullshit.
hey Shiva, how did you feel? How do you figure out compliance is total bullshit?
Well, yesterday, our favorite vendor in the channel, Kaseya, as they're now called.
I refuse.
Fine, we'll call them hot steaming pile of shit. On their update, they put out a notice saying that if you are a federal agency and you have been affected by this because of your instance of Kaseya VSA, and you're on the West Coast or the East Coast, there's a different field office handling it. Now, I went onto the FedRAMP marketplace and I started searching for Kaseya, VSA, Virtual Systems Administrator, and I didn't find it. So
Is any version of Kaseya on FedRAMP?
nothing from Kaseya is on there. And I know my IT glue rep told me that Kaseya is also in the Air Force or being used by the Air Force. So how is a non-FedRAMP platform and vendor in the federal system? I'm just leaving that there. But hey, go compliance.
You know, this actually brings up a really good point. And I'll direct this a little bit to you, Brian, because you and I are in the same group for CMMC and stuff like that, even though notably I am much more down the rabbit hole of going down CMMC than you have, that you're going down right now. I don't remember anywhere in CMMC or anything like that when you're going through any of these NIST or SOX or any of these platform or certifications or compliances, I should say. Sorry, when you're going down these federal compliances that are actual compliant and not self-attestation, I don't remember any of them actually saying you have to hold yourself and go with anything that is a FedRAMP or meets a certain criteria. We do talk about logging, we talk about a bunch of other stuff, but nothing around that. Do you remember anything?
The only thing I can think of is if you consider it part of your supply chain, technically you should be checking all your vendors to make sure they meet criteria as well, right? It's how we supply our services. So that's the only thing I could think of that touches on that.
So what's the point of having FedRAMP? Other than a spending exercise?
I think it's just like Brian's Dado box back there, this gold box. It's just to say, hey, we are a certain thing, and that's about it.
We've read enough about it. I mean, I do feel like compliance without proper accountability is kind of best effort and smoke and mirrors in certain cases.
I think in every case, but I want to throw something out to you guys.
I'm being nice about it, so.
Oh, nice. This is not the podcast for that. I'll throw something out here.
Bad cop, I get to be good cop.
Okay, we could rock with that. So, what would you both say to the fact that the supply chain is lost and we should stop trying to defend it and start over?
Sorry, my audio broke out. Say that one more time.
What would you guys say to the comment, the supply chain is lost and we should accept that, move on and start over?
I don't agree. Yeah, I know that. So to me, from my hacking world, right? Kaseya really take a step back and say, okay, this was not supply chain. They didn't compromise the development of the code, which is supply chain. In Kaseya's world, they compromise an exploit that is available in the Kaseya VSA.
If I may, sorry to interrupt you here. Let's be clear. This is a vulnerability that was disclosed by the DIVD CSIRT. And Kaseya was working on a remediation, which they seemingly put into place via a web application filter or firewall, sorry, in front of their SaaS platform. And they just left their on-prem partners hung out to dry instead of advising shutting down servers until this was patched, because this is an SQL injection vulnerability that bypasses authentication, almost similar to what happened to Kaseya last year. So why didn't they warn their partners to shut down or move faster, other than bad press?
I don't know. I mean, just because of the fact that they don't take their security seriously, right?
I mean, it's got to be one of two things, right? They take it seriously and figured it was bad press, and maybe they're gearing up to do an IPO and they don't want to tarnish anything. Or, like Eric said, they were being complacent. Is there another reason they wouldn't tell people about it? I don't know.
PR. I think it's bad PR.
Yeah.
I think what they thought they could keep it under wraps and get the fix out before it happened. And it's my understanding that the most up-to-date version released by Kaseya up until July 2nd was vulnerable as well. So, patching would not have stopped this. MFA, as our colleagues love to cry for, would not have stopped this.
So here's a better question. Are we at the end of on-prem RMMs now, with the fact that they can't be immediately patched like you can with a platform in the cloud?
So my take on this is I would never run an RMM platform on-prem ever again, because despite what your contract says, if your vendor is hosting the platform for you and they act with gross negligence, you have recourse against them. Why am I going to accept the risk for my vendor being an absolute dumbass when I shouldn't?
Or, I mean, here's why we moved from an on-prem RMM to cloud is, why do I want to take on the responsibility of ensuring that that server is secure, right? I don't have a SOC in-house. I don't have someone to make sure they're staying, most MSPs, I should say, don't have someone to stay on top of really what's needed to ensure that that server's secure. They're too distracted by other day-to-day things in their business.
But how many MSPs out there, how many IT providers out there suffer from that same issue? And by suffer, I just mean having to deal with it, lack of resources on the security side. As we know, it takes more than just collecting logs to make yourself a security practitioner or a threat hunter, which is very different.
Yeah, I mean, the collecting logs is what the compliance part. They're worthless if you don't have someone properly doing threat hunting with them, right?
Exactly. What are you seeing from any of your clients that you took over from Kaseya shops? Are you seeing agents coming back?
We found one client that had a deprecated agent on it that wasn't checking in, and we used our RMM monitoring, the data released to basically kill that process and then run an uninstall.
Okay. Are any of your clients reaching out to you and asking, hey, Brian, are we affected by this Kaseya thing?
So that's something I've been thinking about all weekend. I feel like I haven't reached out to our clients yet because I didn't want to alarm them of something that I didn't find a reason to be alarmed for, especially during the holiday weekend. But settling into this week, I think MSPs, I mean, we need to be reaching out to our clients because they're hearing about this in the news and they're wondering what's going on. So there needs to be something said, right? And if anything, I think this is a great opportunity to go back to those clients that have been potentially pushing off or turning down security, thinking they don't need it, and making them realize, hey, if we don't do this, maybe we can't be working together anymore because it's just too much of a risk. And when I say risk, there's, you can make sure you don't have risk with your clients with proper contract terms or discussions. But I'm saying, just if you've got a client that you're managing day to day, whether they're paying for security or not, if they have an incident, you're going to have to focus resources on it. And it's going to be stressful on your team. It's going to take your focus away from your other clients. And it's going to be a reactive situation that you're trying to clean up, which could potentially cause reputation harm, even if it wasn't your fault. So the question is, do you want to even risk having that type of client where one morning you can get that call that you now have to clean up a shit show, if you will, and hopefully make them understand it wasn't your fault, right?
I think clients are not educated in the IT space, which is why they outsource to us, right? So it's all about delivery. You can take there are two ways I think you can do this. You can be like the vendors in our space who sent us emails saying they are vigilantly watching what's happening with Kaseya and what's unfolding and monitoring the situation, which means they're Googling just as much as we are. Or you can reach out to your clients and say, hey, we're not affected, but we have a SOC in place to monitor for potential indicators of compromise. Should anything happen, we will be in touch with you directly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should go the latter way, right? Is the subject line should be, hey, we're not affected, because you don't want them to jump to that conclusion. And then just explain to them, there's nothing we can do, doesn't affect us, and move on.
Yeah.
Well, now that I got my internet working again, gotta love traveling.
You should get an MSP to help you with that.
You know what? Yeah.
Somebody who uses Kaseya VSA, though.
Open up all the breaches. You only have to drink the beer. It's just all the breaches are there.
Exactly.
Right? So here's the question I have, and forgive me if y'all have already said this because, again, internet and first world problems. Have y'all talked about the whole payment situation yet?
No, I was waiting for you because I know IR is your jam. And the only good thing I think Kaseya has done in this, well, they've done two really good things. They told everyone to shut down their VSA instance, and in my opinion, should never start it back up. Whatever. And the other thing is they brought in FireEye's Mandiant for the IR. Now, I'm curious why, and this is just, Eric, you know me pretty well. Brian, I think you're getting to know me pretty well. Since the MSP space is filled with so much top-tier talent, why are they going to Mandiant and not supporting one of their vendors in their channel to do the IR?
Because I don't think any of them really know what the hell they're doing. When it comes to, so again, there's not to throw shade, but everybody, and we'll get to the IR in a minute because now I'm triggered, but everybody's in the space talking about, Huntress would have been able to stop it. No, they wouldn't have.
Did they?
No.
So then how
Huntress
would they have been able to?
The only thing Huntress may have been able to alert on is their ransomware canaries.
And, to Huntress's credit, they were one of the earlier companies to identify what's going on, and they published IOCs very quickly.
They did.
And
Yes.
I am going to go out them, and I believe Blackpoint did as well. And we're going to have John on so we can get that from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But I'm a little curious. Why are the other managed SOC vendors in the channel so quiet?
So, you asked me that question the other day, and I'm really curious. It may be where they are doing professional courtesy. If I was a Datto or I was a ConnectWise company.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm not saying, I'm talking about the managed Kool-Aid. I mean, SOCs, not Kool-Aids.
Gotcha.
Right. We're talking the Rocket Cybers, recently acquired by Kaseya and said to have been rolled out to all Kaseya infrastructure. We're talking about Perch. We're talking about Vigilan, Sock Soder, and there's one other little
Scout or whatever.
Scout, who they're on their second acquisition by Barracuda now.
Mm-hmm.
It's crickets from all of them.
Again, when I was saying, if I was a Datto or if I was a ConnectWise, including Perch or anything else, I'm sure there was back-end communication say, hey, if you need us, help us out or let us know. We have resources that, we can allocate to help out, the professional courtesy. But, you've already got Huntress in there spewing stuff all the time. Really, unless Datto or Perch or any of these other guys are really in the mix of it, maybe they're just being quiet because they're just like, we have nothing to say. We're just watching like the rest of everybody else. We haven't been brought in to help at all.
Okay, so take Perch out because chances are, if you're a Perch customer, you're on Automate. Take some of the other guys out. Let's talk about Rocket Cyber.
Oh boy, here we go with some more triggering.
Acquisition in February. So March, April, May, June. 4 months. I'm hoping it's such a good platform because they could have deployed it throughout their architecture, even though VSA supposedly is not being used on Rocket Cyber assets. Why didn't they stop this? How did Kaseya actually figure out what was going on? I read reports that partners were calling in saying, hey, we're getting popped. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Kaseya, from what I read, it wasn't Kaseya figuring out that partners were getting popped.
Yeah, I actually saw screenshots between partner and a rep at Kaseya where the rep made comments like, can you give us more information? We're looking into this now, and it definitely didn't come off as if they already knew about it, from what I read. So that was definitely interesting.
People I've spoken to said that the attack started unfolding around 10 a.m. Eastern time. Wow. Kaseya did not, well, I don't want to put Kaseya under the bus for this one. Reddit, the national news agency for MSPs, I think around 2:30 made it public about a Kaseya, or Huntress posted that there was an incident underway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did it take Kaseya to figure out there was an attack underway on its systems? And Eric, I do agree with you. It's not, I think the supply chain was attacked. I don't think this is a supply chain attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's not the same as SolarWinds, right?
SolarWinds is beautiful and elegant and sexy.
And we'll get into this one in a little bit.
It was Pam Anderson circa 1994.
Oh yeah, before she became a steaming hot mess. Got it. But this one was still elegant. It's not SolarWinds elegant, but it's still elegant, right? So in the IR space, when I am doing a bunch of you know, I think we just broke over 300 cases from last year and this year of IRs. Um,
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. You know, we're still small, we're still growing. So, but the the fact that ReEvil, they are a ransomware as a service. Um, the fact that one of their affiliates had the patience to exploit over now potentially 1,000 VSA, and here's where some of the news is still iffy on.
Can I
We
just
don't
hop
know.
in here for a second, please? That 1,000 number came from Huntress based on their clients that use, based on Huntress clients that use VSA, not the entire thing.
No, last time I checked that Reddit, it said looking at the feed, and I'll have to pull it up here real quick.
That's Huntress's thread though on Reddit.
Hmm but the Huntress was not crediting that to their clients. They were crediting that to you know comments in the feed where over 1,000 or whatever it is actually you know potentially ransomed, right? So um, we're even seeing the Kaseya BMS is currently down. I'm not sure if that's um, anything to do with VSA. I don't know what BMS is, backup management system, maybe. I don't know, but it's definitely lost my train of thought there. But here we go. Ransomware incident in progress. Um, so they're making a mention that because of the comments in here that it looks like there was over 1,000 potentially guys who were or guys and gals companies that were actually attacked. Um, Update on from yesterday at 11:17 where I guess 900 customers have requested the Kaseya detection tool. Um, but I do know there are some international companies that were compromised. So back to the train of thought before I go completely squirrel. ReEvil, their affiliates are really the best way I can describe them is like a 3-year-old in a candy shop. They find an exploit, they go in, they reach massive amounts of fucking havoc, encrypt everything, and they're done. Right? The elegance that they took to compromise all of these and wait, or was the affiliate for ReEvil so large that they were able to do it all at one time? I think the former. I do think that they sat and waited for
Early
that thing to
on,
go.
US CERT identified this as a supply chain hack, indicating or potentially indicating that the files were pushed out by Kaseya as part of an update.
Mm-hmm.
If that's true, then yes, this is a supply chain breach, not an attack on the supply chain. But
And from what we know now, and again, just like with any news story, freaking, I mean, even take a look at SolarWinds. We still take a year and still trying to find out information, right? But this doesn't look like it's supply chain. They don't look like they actually compromised the development of Kaseya VSA.
well, here's something that not many people are talking about, and this is your area of operation. This is ReEvil's third bite of the apple at Kaseya.
Mm-hmm.
The first one when ReEvil was Grand Crab and the ConnectWise Manage plugin was exploited. Then the WebRoot plugin or what have you was exploited against Kaseya. And now this is ReEvil all over again. So why is it in 3 years there have been 3 years? Yeah, 2018 was the first one. So why is it in 3 years the same ransomware group has successfully gotten to Kaseya partners at increasing scale each time?
Yeah, one of two things. Either they have a hard on for Kaseya,
And we're not Revel, even though we have a hard on for Kaseya. I'm just throwing that out there for whoever's listening.
Or, and they are just actively exploiting the crap out of it. Or somebody's tipping them off, I think.
What if they have persistence in Kaseya?
They could, but here's the part that still doesn't sit well with me. And I don't, as a CH, and we do, pen testing against Datto and Synchro and stuff like that. So the security company that went through the disclosure, I sit with them pretty good, or I feel for them a little bit. They're like, crap, for whatever reason, did we get compromised or something like that? Because, is somebody inside of that penetration company actually compromised or is leaking data to ReEvil? Because it's really suspicious that they found an exploit right at the same time that ReEvil did.
I think there is persistence. And, I always said that SolarWinds was nothing more than a mapping exercise by whomever did it, whether it was state sponsored or not. But I think with the scale of the Kaseya breach, this is about, and I think, you and I had this conversation earlier. This is nation state backed. Whether or not people want to admit it, this is an APT, or we think it is an APT. What if this is about stretching us enough to see the holes?
It could be. This is the thing that I really toyed with because a lot of the information that was coming out was really, really sketchy. Because ReEvil is not known for true supply chain vulnerabilities. Actually breaching side of code and doing the SolarWinds 2.0, which what we originally thought this thing was.
And thankfully, it doesn't seem to be.
It doesn't seem to be at this moment.
Well, actually, it kind of is if they are in the federal space.
Maybe. So there was a lot of things that just kind of really threw me off. Something this big, normally ReEvil goes stupid and posts it all over their sites. Huntress posted an Onion site on their feed during one of the updates, and I'm like, that's not one of ReEvil's ransomware pages. I went to it and it was blank. So I started poking around. I'm like, why are y'all posting this? This is not ReEvil's site, and there's nothing on here. So I started really wondering. I'm like, okay, is this an actual ATP? A sanctioned state-backed threat actor that's mimicking maybe version 1 of ReEvil that was posted on GitHub a month or two ago, and throwing shade like this is ReEvil and kind of confusing the crap out of people, making them think in different directions, or what exactly is going on here? Because nothing was really adding up. Where I really was about to start screaming from the mountains, like I don't think this is ReEvil, because there was so many indicators. Everybody was saying supply chain, supply chain, supply chain. And all the threat feeds, everything else that was coming out, and the fact that ReEvil wasn't talking about it yet, especially something this massive, there was just too many red flags.
Go ahead, sorry.
And I still wonder how ReEvil got a hold of this exploit. And I'm not trying to say there's something, malicious going on with the security company who did the vulnerability disclosure. But it makes me wonder if there was something there as well.
I think maybe there's persistence in Kaseya. 3 bytes. That's the vector I would look at first.
I mean, isn't that the first thing you do, Eric, when you go in on IR is try to look for persistence because you got to stop the bleeding, right?
Yeah, we do that. We look for any persistence. We see any processes, registry keys, and things of that nature. Because we have to contain the network. We can't go in and start and triage and everything if there's actual persistence in there. And that was another thing that kept coming up on Huntress's IOC is all about the registry key of Black Lives Matter, and I'm like, I'm sitting here looking on,
A registry key?
yeah.
Okay.
Here, I'll show it out here real quick since I've got it up. On all the thread feeds, there was literally nothing about it, right? There was nothing around. I can't do it because I don't have two monitors going on right now. But there was no intel at all around it. I don't know. I've never seen ReEvil put registry keys of the encryption codes inside of there, because anytime I do the yeah, 1 second here. Anytime I do any sort of persistence testing or anything like that, and I look at the payloads that they put in, they're always saying, or they always do a PowerShell, which will do a random encryption key. They will save it as a variable, send it to a third party website, and they will do a post command to that website that will store it, and they move on with the whole encryption. So the fact that they actually stored that in an encryption key or in a register key,
I'm sure you remember this, but we discussed the lull that they've been on for the last 2 weeks as a way for these guys to redo their programming, their tactics, their techniques, and we've seen that TrickBot has new code. We've seen ReEvil has adjusted, and the part that is left to be seen. They're asking for 70 million. In your experience, how long does it take to get the decryptor key once they get their crypto?
typically within about 2 hours.
Okay. Now, based on the pipeline ransom being recovered, don't you think it's going to take more time for them to actually give up the decryption keys to make sure they tumble that money, get it where they want it to be secured, and then issue some decryptor keys?
Yeah, I really do. Because most of the ReEvil ones it's once you start the engagement with them on the communication, their system is an automated system. So once they receive the payment, the system automatically generates the decryptor key. Because I'm sure that they've got whatever actor, affiliate actor was doing it. They've already submitted the decryption files or decryption process when they submit it up to ReEvil. So they've, their headquarters, if you will actually post it in there, or they will actually put it there. Give me a second. Wait for you to finish up that one real quick. So when you're taking a look at this, if you scroll down a little bit, just a kind of side talk, keep going, right there. So that last bullet point right there, where they're talking about the registry key of the Black Lives Matter. That's something we haven't seen before. I don't know what significance that may have, but anyway,
you know what this makes me think of? Do you remember when Secretary of State Blinken had the meeting with the Chinese delegation earlier this year, just after inauguration? And they were trying to talk to them about the Uyghur issues going on and treating their people well, and not committing mass genocide. And I believe the Chinese replied, "Well, look at how you're treating your own people." Is this a veiled association to that? Maybe it's not ReEvil. Maybe it's a Chinese hacker taking credit for this. That could be a far stretch, but hey.
That could be, like we keep saying, that ReEvil is a ransomware as a service. So, was this potential threat actor part of, that nation, the Chinese nation or something like that? There's really no telling, right? So, everybody's like, well, we got to go after Russia for all this stuff. You're not going after Russia for this because it's a ransomware as a service. you're not going to know who in the world actually did this.
Unfortunately,
Parent.
unfortunately, not all of these attacks are launched from Russia, China, Iran, or North Korea. You know, working theories are a lot of them are in the Ukraine and former, Eastern Bloc, Soviet Bloc countries. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these operators are not in the U.S., but they are in the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, we just don't know where. I mean, that's from the general public, right? So anybody I always talk to, because I always want to know, it's like, where are these guys located at? So I'm asking people, on private channels and stuff like that. Does anybody know? Does anybody know? Does anybody really know? And they're not saying it to me, whether they just don't want to tell me or really the fact that nobody freaking knows where the hell these guys really are. We have our suspicions, right?
well, the Europol and some other agencies, they shut down, what was it, double VPN last
Yeah.
week.
Mm-hmm.
I think this attack is also slap in the face to say, hey, look how many people we can affect. If Revil is being truthful, that there have been over 1 million devices that have been affected, this is probably the largest incident in the history of ransomware. Brian, I mean, I don't know. Do you know of anything larger?
No, it definitely is. And I keep thinking back to the why didn't they come out right away? And listening to all the pieces, the fact that this is automated ransomware as a service, maybe they didn't know what their impact was going to be initially. So they wanted to wait and see before they came out with a statement, right? Because the larger the impact, maybe a different message than a smaller impact.
This is true. I don't think we are, as people, as non-ransomware people, are going to know the full impact of this or anything close to it for at least a couple of days. When people go back to their office tomorrow, they put on their computer and they see whatever the message is.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, I have not been able to track down a screenshot of what that message looks like.
I have asked for it, even when over the weekend everybody was like supply chain and we were still debating re-evil and all that stuff. I'm like, somebody please send me the readme note, because again, like I said, the one that Huntress was posting was not the original, or it's not known to be part of the re-evil or re-evil group, or one of the re-evil groups. So it was really interesting that they even posted a blank onion site. So I was really curious about that. So, but yeah, I never did get a readme note, but some of the images that I've seen come out of the actual negotiations, I can confirm that is a re-evil negotiation blog. So it's definitely interesting. Do you guys think that Kaseya either one will pay the $70 million because of a possible code exploit that's now been, shade has been thrown by the security firm saying, hey, they did this because of what we reported. Do you think they will do that? Or do you think they're going to say, it's your environment. You should have better protections in place and not pay the $70 million. And
Brian, sorry, go ahead.
And two, the second thing that I'm curious about, if they don't pay it, do you think there will be a class action lawsuit because of what I said? None of their SaaS platforms were supposedly ransom. Now we could find out in a couple of weeks that they were.
We'll find out tomorrow.
Maybe. I mean, the SaaS platforms are still down, right? So
allegedly, even though some on-prem systems are still accessible to the interwebs.
Yeah, that reminds me. Clorox company, shut down your freaking Kaseya server. Because we found your internal IT guys and they won't answer the phone. But anyway.
And that's part 2 of responsible disclosure by Barricade Cyber. Brian, you've come through an incident involving Kaseya. What do you think? I mean, I'd like to hear how you answer that, and then I'll throw my 2 cents in.
So based on my personal relationship and other people's relationships that I've heard about Kaseya, is I don't see them offering to pony up and bail everyone out with a $70 million payout. probably because they have to keep a stance that, you know, they're not liable until proven liable, right? It's kind of that situation. But that doesn't mean there won't be a class action suit, which could end up costing them a lot more than the 70 million. So it's like,
sorry, go ahead.
And then the question then becomes, okay, if we've done the math and a class action is going to cost more than 70 million, and we decide to pay the 70 million, where's the backlash there, right? Are they going to now set a precedent for vendors bailing out MSPs? Are they going to cause issues with their insurance company, maybe not wanting to, you know, insure them moving forward, or have certain limitations? You know, what type of insurance do they even have for this type of event, and what's the coverage? I mean, do they have 70 million sitting aside that they could easily use? I mean, these are all questions that I think would go into making that decision, I guess, that are coming to mind.
So my take on this is they should probably pay the ransom for a couple of reasons. First one being it's a responsibly notified vulnerability from the Dutch company. Secondly, Kaseya put in a web access firewall rule to block this vector of attack on their SaaS platform, allegedly. And thirdly, they did not inform their partners of anything to do with this vulnerability. They didn't say, hey, put a WAF on, hey, shut your shit down. So to me, that's negligence. They knew of a considerable threat, and they chose to protect their own infrastructure and not that of their partners. So I think, yeah, they should probably pay the ransom. And I still think that the Kaseya partners should band together and serve them up some good old class action lawsuit.
Yeah.
Because the reputation damage is going to be far-reaching to the MSPs. And let's be honest, you, myself, Eric, we're not on Kaseya, but now we are going to have to field questions from our clientele about the command and control known as RMM.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm already getting them, right? So, you know, they're asking, you know, do I use any Kaseya products? I'm like, nope. Go watch any of my podcasts that I've ever talked about. I hate Kaseya. You know, we used, you know, as full disclosure, I was using Rocket Cyber until the day they announced they were, you know, they were being bought out by Kaseya. And I talked to Beth, who was my sales rep and account manager over there, you know, and politely chewed her up and down one way and the other. And I said, I can't believe Billy screwed us like this. Because you and I, Shiva, have had numerous talks with Billy, and never once did we ever get the impression that he was going to be selling things out.
Well, you know, he was under NDA more than likely and couldn't say anything. But, you know, if I were him, I would have just been like, you know, guys, I'm too busy. I can't take the call.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what all these vendors do is, and if you look at your contract with them, any idea you give them becomes their property in its entirety. And what all these vendors do is they put together these advisory panels and they get you to brain dump. They take your ideas, they sit on them, they may use them. What do you get? Another feature you may have to pay for on a platform you already pay for. So that's probably what Billy was doing. You know, he promised a whole lot of things coming. I don't know if they materialized, because the day it was announced is the day I went into Rocket Cyber and hit uninstall on everything.
Yep, me as well.
Question for you guys. What did you do in reaction to hearing of this Kaseya breach on Friday?
I mean, me personally, I was all in the thread feeds just because I'm not in, you know, the Kaseya world, right? So I wanted to start getting as much information from threat feeds that I could, you know, because let's just be honest, you know, again, not to throw shade at Huntress, but I really don't think we're going to get the full story from Huntress. You know, Kyle and them, you know, again, they're trying to do some great stuff for the stuff, but I will guarantee you there are things that they know that they are not going to disclose for the good of the channel.
Well, I mean, you're an
I hate
IR.
that phrase.
That's almost a given, right?
Mhm.
How about you, Brian? What'd you do in response to your alma mater getting popped?
Um, I, immediately had a ton of empathy for all the MSPs out there and had this weird kind of excitement / nervousness where, I wanted to get involved, reach out, learn as much as I could, reached out to all my peer groups. I don't know. I felt the need to help, it sounds like similar with Eric. He's like, all right, we got to figure out what's going on here. Like, we got to get to the bottom of this. And I was extremely disappointed by the lack of transparency from Kaseya, because you had all these other vendors that have no, connection to Kaseya, financially wise, getting involved in helping the channel. And I even reached out to Rocket Cyber thinking, hey, I thought I remember Rocket Cyber becoming the SOC for Kaseya. That was part of the reason they bought them. Was trying to get an answer from them just to even see if there's a vulnerability. We still have Rocket Cyber, but just for the Office 365 monitoring.
Mhm.
I had all their agents.
Rip it out.
What's that?
Rip it out.
Exactly. So I'm in that process. And so I'm just, I'm trying to think, okay, is there anything that can be concerned about with my own house? Double, triple checking, talking to my guys, making sure I got an ear on the ground. And then, like, what are we being told? What do we need to do? I mean, shut down the VSA server is all I heard from Kaseya.
In their defense, that's all they could really do, right? It's like, hey, we have an incident. Shut it down until we can figure out what's going on. That I respect that, because there's really not much else you can do. And when you really think about it, it's for the MSP, it's really hard to sit there and wait for information. But it's even harder for Kaseya to sit there waiting for information, knowing you have thousands of people waiting for information when you have your dick in your hand, because that's what happened. Are any of you IT Glue users?
Mm-mm.
How about Network Detective? Because I did hear someone say that it may have been affected, but then that evaporated and no one said anything anymore.
No, I tried Network Detective long before because they ever got their hands on them. So I haven't been with it since.
What, you don't like generating a 300-page printout of absolute bullshit to scare somebody? Come on, man.
I remember doing this. Now that you say that, I have flashbacks of some of my early MSP years of, having that platform and dropping one of those big freaking 3-inch binders on their desk. And they're going through and they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? This is all the crap that's broke. And they just look at it and they're like, yeah, whatever. We just can't deal with this, and we just move on. Right. So it's there's so much information supposedly that are in those reports that it just becomes, they just mentally shut down.
How do you guys see yourself moving forward with RMM in general?
I mean, my personal situation is I want to be able to have my SOC with eyes on what's going on in the RMM to be able to identify something more proactively. And then trying to get a message from my RMM vendor on, how something like this would be prevented in the future. I mean, it sounds like if the wireless access firewall rule was put in place for the SaaS platform that Kaseya had, they were able to secure that, obviously, but not all the on-prem servers. I mean, I'm probably would be advising don't use an on-prem RMM anymore, right?
But see, here's where the pushback comes in on that, because I know I got disconnected a little bit there. But when you have an on-premise RMM solution, you have greater visibility to the logs. You're able to, I mean, as long as you know what the heck you're doing, you can actually monitor that stuff. Where SaaS, you can't.
So do the bad guys.
That was the first point I brought up. I want better visibility on my SaaS RMM, right?
Do you think RMM is here to stay? with the emergence of 365?
No, I do think something's going to take the place of it. But here's the so like I am in a really funky spot, right? So half of, well, I'd say more than half, but about 80% of my client base is 365. The rest of them are G Suite or some other solution. So until I can get everybody under a 365 tenant or some sort of central management like that, I'm going to have to use some sort of RMM as a software deployment. GPOs are great, don't get me wrong, but unless you're in there, you got something in there to monitor GPO changes and stuff, you still need something to be able to communicate back to you. And that's the biggest problem that I have.
Well, here's an interesting thought for you. You use Sumo, I use Sumo. If you put their collector on an endpoint, you can run scripts, and that script can download and deploy software. The only thing you're missing is going to be that remote access to get onto the box.
Yeah.
Which you can
I think
buy anything for.
And I'm really thinking about doing the Sumo for just at least for the one or any of the domain controllers. There's the actual RDS or something like that. The server level, but I'm definitely not going to be using Sumo for the workstation just because of as much noise they use. That's where I really think our EDR really needs to step in and be able to do the quote unquote threat hunting on an endpoint for that. So,
Brian, what are you using RMM for today, as opposed to what you may have been using it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago?
So, when I think of the 5 NIST pillars, the first one, identify, it's really an area where I can identify all the devices that we're responsible for managing. So I've got a single source of truth for that. And that's where I'm kind of split between Intune and RMM right now, because I've got Intune we're using for mobile devices, which aren't in my RMM. And then I've got RMM for network devices, which aren't in Intune. So, I'm pushing, my RMM vendor Datto to do a tighter integration with a one-to-one relationship between Intune and RMM. But if Intune ever gets to the point where I'm also able to see network devices there, right, and I've got a better multi-tenant capability to manage everything, and I'm not heavily relying on GPOs with an on-prem domain server, I see in the future everything being able to be done on the Microsoft stack.
If you use Azure Sentinel, you can deploy a network probe to identify everything. Only problem is I only know of one PSA that integrates with any of that stuff to give you that one-to-one relationship. None of the big 3 do it.
And this comes back to what I always scream from the top of the mountainside. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know the PSA you're talking about, Halo PSA, but having that single pane of glass is scary as hell. Right? I mean, if I have everything going back into one, and tell me if I'm wrong, right? If I have everything going back into one, that is that one product that you have to breach, or I have to breach, to get complete visibility. So, having all these API integrations and things of that nature, it just opens up a big effing gateway.
Here's the interesting thing about getting that single pane of unicorn glass into a PSA. With the right permission structure, you're only getting a view. However, with an RMM, chances are you're getting the ability to do whatever the hell you want.
And most of them are that way. Like even with Rocket Cyber, when we were with those and we started looking at the permissions that Rocket Cyber wanted for 365, it's a freaking ton. I'm like, you don't need that. You're just pulling logs. You don't need right permissions.
Brian, are you using Blackpoint's 365 piece?
For our own house, yes. And that's what I'm going to be moving everyone over to. They're currently white labeling SureWeb for that, but they're building out their own custom integration.
What do their permissions look like there? Are they just getting read-only access? Or being your SOC, are they getting full admin access?
That's a great question. In my talks with them, I would hope they're only getting read only because they don't really need write. But I guess that's really a question for SureWeb, right? Because it's their tool. Go ahead, Eric.
So I'm going to be a little bit asshole.
Triggered.
Triggered. Here comes asshole. So when you go in there and you set up the permissions, you don't read through the descriptions of everything you're giving it access to when you set up that integration.
I do. Yes. I don't,
Then you would know. Then you would know what permissions they have.
I know.
Hey man, we're getting old. Our memories aren't as good as they used to, which is why we use IT Glue, brought to you by Kaseya.
You got to give me a break, brother. My coffee still hasn't kicked in.
You need Adderall.
It's not even 9 o'clock for Brian yet, man. We've been up for 4 or 5 hours at least, you and I each.
And I will tell you this: I don't remember any red flags when I was reading through it. But again, I don't want you to quote me on it right now.
But after this, when we go into our super secret Zoom room, if you want help going through your 365 logs, I'm sure me and Shiva could be able to help you with that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Should I put a ticket in for that?
Yes, please do through my Kaseya portal, please.
Oh, wait. It might be slow as fuck today.
SLAs have gone out the window today. Please contact us next year.
So,
Listen,
real quick, I never finished answering the question earlier. So RMM, I mean, you've got your remote access to devices, right? You've got your monitoring and alerting. You've got
what are you monitoring on with a SOC?
What's that?
What do you need to really monitor with an RMM that you're not doing with a SOC? And please don't tell me disk space.
No, it'd be, yeah, it's the basic stuff. Uptime. You're right. I'm just telling you what are the pillars of RMM for us, right? And then, are you going to let me finish my thought? Now I just lost track. So remote access, monitoring, alerting, automation of onboarding, offboarding, scripting, right?
Okay.
And then really identification of assets we're responsible for monitoring and maintaining compliance in the sense of understanding when devices are missing software they need to have, or, things like that.
You know what really sucks about Datto for compliance? Where Automate beats them? You can make a UDF or an EDF in Automate. That's an actual checkbox for compliance. Datto is just a text box.
Yeah, there was better UDF capabilities.
That's the one thing ConnectWise does better than Datto, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy trying to be an MSP.
We know a certain Jew that if they're listening to this podcast at any given time, they're going to be very happy that we mentioned that.
Oh boy. Oh boy. And let me be clear.
That wasn't
Eric is being nice there because this person is a very dear friend of ours.
Yes.
Oh,
and it wasn't
Eric.
racist or anything that I was saying Jewish, so he just happens to be that way.
Alrighty then. Send me the video. I'll edit that piece out.
This is live, dude. There's no editing.
There you go. Anything else you boys want to go over?
No. I think we're dealing with internet issues and all this other stuff. I think we're pretty much said it. Welcome to the steaming pile that continues to be 2021.
Any advice you guys have for practitioners or end users out there?
So I've actually gotten 4 calls so far over the weekend from Kaseya partners who are wanting to know what they do.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How free do they want it?
Very free. They
Sounds
actually
about right.
But they're wanting to know what they do, and I'm like, you're in the middle of a big freaking mess.
I mean, the first step should be contacting their cybersecurity insurance, right?
They don't have one.
They don't have it. Some of these don't have proper backups.
That sucks.
They don't have proper backups. They don't have proper for their own stuff. They don't have the proper insurances to deal with this. So they're scared out of their mind. They are looking at a massive backlash from their clients, and they don't know what to do.
So then the next step would be what? Contact your lawyer if you don't have insurance.
If they can't afford insurance, you think they can afford a lawyer?
The lawyers that I refer them to are going to be outside their price range anyway, because
So
most of them are designed to be on panel. So
find a lawyer that's setting up a class action lawsuit then.
maybe, but at the same time,
How do they get through the incident?
Yeah, you got to get through this. And I don't know any incident response firms that are out there, including myself or Kroll or anybody else, that is just going to sit on whatever money that is being used. That's why as much as I hate to say it, I really hope that Kaseya does the right thing and they pay the ransomware note. Because there's a lot of, pizza techs and very small shops that they can't weather this storm.
So really their next choice, or the client's choice, if they can't get through this, is to go find a bigger MSP that's willing to bail them out of this as part of some acquisition deal, or the client's just left off on their own trying to have to find someone else to clean it up for them and then use, hopefully, the client's insurance, right?
Would you buy an MSP, Brian, that's going through an incident like this, or would you buy their assets and customer list?
Neither.
I wouldn't even consider it just because of what I've been through. That's the last thing I'd want to introduce to my team. But I could see larger MSPs out there using this as a fire sale to try to gain more market share because they feel like they want to take it on and they care more about growing than putting their
I
kid.
can see that, especially the ones with the close ties to law enforcement. It might behoove them to do that.
But here's the thing so let's just say hypothetically your business was compromised. You're the grocery store with 500 locations that I've seen in the news that's shut down because of this ransomware, because of Kaseya.
And giving away free goods.
Yeah, they're giving away free goods because they can't process anything. Are you really going to be like, oh, hey, I just bought out your existing company. We're going to come in and do this. Are you really going to feel all that comfortable with it? No, because I'm probably, as a business owner, just my mindset, I'm like, F all you guys. I am heading over here to talk to somebody who I can actually build a relationship with and trust. So I don't think there's going to be any real fire sales because the assets are tainted, right? It's fruit from a poisonous bush, if you will, poisonous tree. It's not good.
So then I guess what it would be is smaller MSP reaching out to a bigger MSP to help bail them out. And the reward for the bigger MSP is maybe getting those clients.
I don't know if they would want them. I don't know if those clients would stay. That's
I would go. I know this is not a welcome sentiment in the MSP channel right now. I have no problem going after those clients because when SolarWinds had their incident, Kaseya called me thinking my company was on SolarWinds, saying, "Hey, have you heard about the breach? We're more secure."
Mm-hmm.
But now everyone's saying, don't be a fearmonger, don't sell on fear, which I don't do. But at the same time, look at it from the end business's point of view. Mm-hmm. They've got 5, 10, dozen, 2 dozen, couple hundred workstations that are completely fucked. What do? Sit there with their thumb up their ass while the MSP waits for Kaseya to maybe patch this thing? Or do they engage with their insurance, hire someone like Eric to go through the remediation, or at least the imaging of the memory and the workstations and the servers, and then go to town with a new provider, not MSP, but any service provider, and rebuild? Who can wait? I guess, how many end customers can wait for Kaseya to figure their shit out?
I don't know. And I really think this is going to be a weeks and weeks thing because I really think that there's going to be a bunch of MSPs and customers that are waiting to see what Kaseya does. And they're going to hold out for dear life thinking that they're going to come through.
And they might
find out they're going to be holding the bag at the end of the.
Kaseya may do it because now that, CISA has been involved, FBI has been involved, the president has issued an order, directive, something that the intelligence community has to get involved to figure out what's going on. There are too many eyes on this for Kaseya to just try to brush it under the rug. Mm-hmm. And to me, that would be the only thing that would really force Kaseya to take action.
Yeah.
Can the government force Kaseya to pay that?
No, because they're a private entity.
I don't think
What
so.
leverage is the government going to be able to have?
No.
Short of them being inside of
The
a
government could do like they did the banks and bail them out and just print a bunch of money and say, here you go.
but see,
Nationalize them.
the banks are under FDIC,
Oh,
and the other one, the NCI, no, not NCIS, the other community one, I forget, but it's under federal regulations.
yeah, that's
So-
fair. That's a good point.
I think Kaseya is in the unenviable position of having to navigate this. And one thing I wanted to discuss, because I know we're coming up on time here, is that do you guys remember when SolarWinds happened and news broke a Sunday night?
No, I slept since then.
It was in December, or was it November? Whatever. Within 48 hours, a patch was issued. How long has it been since the incident?
Yeah, we're over 48 hours now.
We're way over 48 hours, and they don't anticipate a patch being released for at least another couple days.
Mm-hmm.
So this underscores the difference between SolarWinds, a real company, and a Kaseya that is a monster in the MSP community. And let's remember, Kaseya has been working on a mitigation for this pre-incident. So the fact that they couldn't push something out within 48 hours is concerning. Would be concerning to me had I been a Kaseya BSA partner.
Well, they're not in the enterprise space like SolarWinds, though, right? So they just don't have the resources.
Yeah, but they like to come out and pretend they're a big swinging dick.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk to Kaseya reps, there's no one better than them. They're tip of the spear, and we're 60 hours out, and still no patch for their partners. I mean, come on. How long did it take them to mobilize IR?
Nobody knows.
To me, it seems, Eric, this is, again, your area of operation. It seems for the first 24 hours, they were shooting from the hip. I think we scared Eric away. But, anything else you wanted to cover, Brian? Or, there you go. Eric, you're back.
Yeah,
I was
sorry,
asking.
My internet's flaking out again.
Good old Flo Rida.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, I made the comment that it looks like Kaseya was shooting from the hip for the first 24 hours. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah.
Or at least the first 12 till
Absolutely.
9-10 a.m. Saturday morning.
Yeah, because I mean, there was, when you're having just random people calling in saying, "Hey, we got a problem," and they're trying, anytime you got to think about, it's like, okay, you got X number of partners flooding level 1 support with claims of ransomware, claims of whatever. There's time to triage that, before it even goes level 2. What's their typical SLA for level 1 support? A couple hours, I would imagine. 6 maybe?
3 hours in the month of February.
Okay. So let's just say you have 300 MSPs, creating level 1 support tickets, and they're going through their default scripts of troubleshooting before it even gets escalated.
So here's an interesting question for you. And Brian, this may be your cup of tea. Do either one of you have anything in place to identify tickets with the same root cause across multiple clients to see if you are under siege?
Yes. I was just trying to think in my head, like, why would ransomware tickets come in as a level 1 initially? Because we have a separate security incidents queue that everything gets dumped into, which are immediately emergencies.
Okay, you're a panicking end user. You shoot out something to support at brianscompany.com, or sorry, ITECH-solutions.com. Did I get that right? It's going to go into your regular queue, wouldn't it?
So Yeah, most of our clients are trained to not do that.
I mean, think about it from
Yeah.
these guys are under siege. They're seeing the shit pop up and they're like, fuck, what do I do?
Yeah. We have a service delivery manager who monitors the queue. And if for some strange reason they all came in via email versus using our client portal or calling, where they actually get triaged up more automated, it would definitely be a red flag immediately. I mean, my guys are on standby just with PTSD. I mean, my guys had PTSD coming back from this, even though it hasn't even affected us.
I can imagine.
So we're in a little bit different of a case. We get on a pretty high alert, even if someone's email box becomes compromised. I mean, we're like double, triple, quadruple checking things to make sure there's no persistence,
So that goes back to my question. How do you, if it's coming in via a ticket, an email ticket, are you parsing for certain keywords to dump it into a more critical queue, security queue? Like, are you parsing for ransomware, Bitcoin, and words like that?
No, because we get probably 20 to 30% of our tickets via email, and they're all low priority. In fact, when someone creates a ticket via email, they get a response back saying, "Hey, you created this via email. Therefore, it's priority 5 business days. If you want higher priority, you either need to call us or you need to use the portal where they can define their priority while selecting it.
Or pay more.
Yeah, pay more.
Pay more so that every ticket is an important ticket.
But in our portal, there's literally a security incident thing, and then it asks them all these questions, and that comes in automatically as an emergency. They don't even have a choice to pick priority on that. So, again, if I was an MSP that heavily relied on email, I would have parsing. I would recommend setting up parsing. Or if you don't have someone that can monitor it 24 hours, or I guess the other option would be someone monitoring it 24 hours to identify that manually.
Well, I think parsing is really something everybody should do. It's built into the platform, right? At least on an alerting piece, and keep dinging someone till they.
Yeah, the tricky part for us is we have an on-call person and an answering service after hours. So I'd hate for a false positive to come in and wake someone up because of some unintelligent parsing that happened,
Gotcha. Just parse for ransomware and parse for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean,
we have compromising video from your webcam.
Yeah.
Which is usually not the case. But
eat my Snickers.
We actually had an emergency over the weekend from someone who installed a Ring camera and then got one of those emails and was freaking out.
Oh wow!
And
anything else, boys or gentlemen?
Gentlemen,
looking forward to talking to John later, seeing what his input is. I feel like I'm still in kind of a learning process because there's just so little information out there,
Yeah.
I'm going to ping him and see if he wants to hop on sometime tomorrow. If you're game for it, Brian. I don't know what your schedule is like, but we can discuss that offline instead of OSINTing your entire daily schedule to the interwebs.
Oh, I thought he had his calendar put up on a public forum of ICS. You can just look at all of this stuff that he's doing.
But it just shows when he's available, not who he's talking to.
We did contact the NSA for that.
It says live on this, so I'm sure they're already listening and they know.
This is true.
Well, Google knows at the very least.
This is true. Google knows all. So
between that and Facebook.
All right, boys. Eric, you want to take us out?
Yeah, man. Thanks again for joining yet another episode of our podcast. If you could please, I don't know, I'm having a brain dump. Chevy, you do it this time, man. My internet's flaking out badly here.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Cybersecurity Amplified and Intensified with Eric Taylor of Barricade Cyber.com, Brian Weiss of ITECH Solutions.com, and myself, Shiva Maharaj of Kontinuum.com. Kontinuum with a K, not C, like ConnectWise. Please like, subscribe, share, drop us a line, let us know what you want to hear about, ask us questions. we're game to help and have some really candid discussions. And Brian, anything else you want to add?
No, I guess, stay off the sauce if you got hit. Keep a clear mind.
And if you want to get rid of some of your customers because you couldn't service them properly because you chose Kaseya, I'm open to taking them. I don't know if Brian wants any of them, but
I'm
I'll
here.
make and pay them.
I'm here to help MSPs more than care about getting new clients. So definitely here at the very least for moral support.
Be careful when you say help in the MSP world, they think free tools.
That's why I said at the very least moral support. That's what I can offer for free.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. See you.